Open.
Just play.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's lovely. All of us here. So today, my name is Valerie. I'm the UK WeCAN chair, and today we're going to be hearing from two great speakers, and they're also life and career coaches, and they're going to be taking us through two topics. That's harnessing your entrepreneurial side as a professional woman, and also cultivating some mindful practices to increase self-awareness. And I'm sure we're going to benefit a lot from these chats. So before we start our program, I'm just going to give a few minutes to our WeCAN Global Chair, Janice, to give some opening remarks, and we can start. Over to you, Janice.
Thanks, Valerie, and thank you to the UK chapter. It is an absolute pleasure to have you host this session, and I must say it is packed with powerhouses. As you would be aware, as chartered accountants, one thing that we always need to get our act together on are the softer skills, because that's the foundation of leadership. And you would have seen the common thread between our two speakers today that they are both coaches. And for those who might want to know what coaches are or what coaching is, it is leadership training that's designed to assist executives with positive leadership development, enhancing their reputation and ability to succeed at the highest level. And in this instance, or if you didn't know, about 40% of Fortune 500 companies CEOs utilize executive coaches. So for us, it's quite a treat. And when I look at Marjorie's topic, harnessing your entrepreneurial side as a professional woman, it excites me as an entrepreneur. And even if you are in corporate, the entrepreneur in you is supposed to come out for you to value add in your role. So this is something that's very relevant. So Marjorie, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your wealth of knowledge and experience, and can't wait for us to sink our teeth into what you have to share. From Shailendra's perspective, she'll be talking about cultivating mindful practices for increasing self-awareness. In the South African chapter, we're spoiled because she attends a lot of our sessions, and we get to get a feel for what she has to share on a regular basis. Shailendra, welcome, and we look forward to what you have to share. I won't take too much more of your time. I'm looking forward to this session as much as you are. Back to you, Valerie.
Thanks, Janice. Yes, we're all looking forward to hearing from you both. So before I introduce our first speaker, just a few housekeeping notes. If you have any questions, just pop them onto the chat box. We're going to have a quick Q&A at the end, so we'll just ask all the questions there. And also just make sure you're on mute so we can all focus on the speakers. And yeah, just enjoy. So our first speaker is Marjorie Ngwenya. As Janice said, I think most of us have seen her here and there. She's a qualified actuary and also a life coach. And I'll let her introduce herself further. And yeah, over to you, Marjorie.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that welcome and for having me here today. Really delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak. So I'll start with a little bit about my story, and then I'll go into a bit more about the topic. I was born in the UK in the Midlands area, and I was raised in post-independent Zimbabwe, also in the Midlands area. So very pro-education parents, and I mean very pro. My linguistic or musical or sporting talents really carried no weight with them whatsoever. I was a champion swimmer in my youth, and for those stereotyping, I hate to disappoint you. I am not afraid of the water. My paternal heritage is Sotho, so my father's great-grandfather was co-opted into the Zulu army and forced to change his name from Mokoena to Ngwenya, both of which mean crocodile. And as the army advanced into what is now Zimbabwe, many of them settled in the Mashonaland province. They adopted the Shona culture, which is my mother's background, And so that's the context in which I was raised. So our family name implies one culture, perhaps Ndebele or Zulu, and our heritage belongs to another, Sotho, and our customary practices belong to yet another, Shona. So simply put, I have always straddled many worlds. I was brought up in a small town called Gweru, which I'm sure is familiar to many of you, in a very mixed and close-knit society. So I went to wonderful schools, and I really held the perspective that anything was achievable. But I didn't realize it at the time that I was raised with the idea that climbing the corporate ladder was the be-all and end-all of adult professional life. Now, my parents were adamant that their children would follow professions, and I'm sure that's familiar to many of you. And I decided that I would choose actuarial science because accountancy sounded really boring. No offense, but you can probably see the humor in that coming from an actuary, because it's all relative, right? So after my A-levels, I moved back to the UK for my university studies. And 6 months into my studies at the LSE, the London School of Economics, I had to leave because of Zimbabwe's currency collapse. And that left me feeling a little bit out of sorts, feeling like I didn't quite fit into this world. And so I'd been studying BSc Actuarial Science. And if it wasn't for an open-minded employer, which was Deloitte, who took a bet on a school leaver and a non-graduate, I might not have entered the world of financial services, and who knows where I might be today. But they took me on first as an associate in their tax department, and then later in their actuarial department, despite not having that undergraduate background. I managed to qualify while I was working, and I only went back to university much later on and did a master's degree 10 years ago now. And I'm now actually pursuing doctoral studies. So I've been very fortunate to have lived and worked internationally in Zimbabwe, in the UK, in Canada, in the Netherlands, in South Africa, and now in the US. And I mentioned that my view of being successful, having a successful career, was about climbing the corporate ladder. The truth is that I'd had this huge sense of disconnect with my life as a corporate animal, because something had never quite clicked for me, but in my mind, that's what I was meant to be doing. Now, I desperately wanted it to work because this was the dream, right? The pot of gold was going to be waiting on the other side. If I climbed and climbed enough, I would get to my final goal. At several points, and quite early on in my career, I questioned my path, but I very quickly put my blindfold back on. I'd found corporate life very disappointing on many levels: the politics, the facades, the disingenuity, the inequity, the fickleness, the purposelessness. And to be clear, there are very many positives about corporate life, but many of my experiences jarred with the idea that I had of how I wanted to live. And at many points, I told myself I was too young and too poor to be questioning my path, and I had no real alternative. So this is just how it had to be. And I did this every few months for as long as I can remember. And it was in 2013, while I was at business school, that the idea really grabbed me and took hold of me. But it took me another 4 years to do something about it. There was a personal visioning exercise that I did with a coach back then that really drove the point home for me that I was in a place of conflict. I was meant to be committing my life to my organization, or at least my work life. I was in a senior role, I was leading, but every part of my being knew that I wanted to walk a different path. And so I eventually took the decision to break up with my job and to forge a different path on my own. And since then, I've been able to establish a coaching business. I've done lots of things that I enjoy, such as writing and publishing books. I've created a card game, which seems very, very strange for an actuary, but was fun. And I've dabbled in entrepreneurial activities in a number of other ways. Now, the concept of entrepreneurship has become somewhat of a buzzword in today's society. It's a word that's thrown around frequently, and it means quite different things to different people. For some people, it's about making money. For others, it's about creating impact or pursuing a passion. However, at the core of entrepreneurship is the idea of creating something of value from nothing. You don't have to be a business owner to be entrepreneurial. When we think of entrepreneurship, we often associate it with owning and running a business. And I think, Janice, you alluded to this earlier. But the truth is that entrepreneurship is not limited to business owners. Anyone can be entrepreneurial, regardless of their profession or their job title. At its core, entrepreneurship is about identifying opportunities and then taking action to create something of value. It's about being innovative, creative, and resourceful in finding solutions to problems. And as we know, these skills are not limited to business owners. And in fact, many of the most successful entrepreneurs in history didn't start out as business owners. Many of them were individuals who saw a need or a problem and took action to create something new and valuable. They were creative problem solvers who were able to identify opportunities where others saw only obstacles. So being entrepreneurial means having a mindset that's focused on innovation, creativity, and resourcefulness. It means being willing to take risks and to try new things, even if they're outside of your comfort zone. It means being adaptable and resilient in the face of challenges and setbacks. So for example, an employee who identifies an opportunity for their company to improve its processes or its products has taken the initiative to implement changes, and they can be considered entrepreneurial. A teacher who develops new and innovative teaching methods to better engage their students can also be considered entrepreneurial. And even a stay-at-home parent who identifies a need in their community and takes action to address it can be considered entrepreneurial. So it's not limited to owning and running a business. It's a mindset, and it's a set of skills that can be applied in any professional industry. It's about being proactive, innovative, and resourceful in finding solutions to problems and in creating value. It's also about being willing to take risks to try new things. And as I mentioned, being adaptable and resilient when you face challenges or setbacks. And many of us have the ability to be in these spaces, but not many of us are willing to use these skills. One of the key themes that emerges from entrepreneur stories is the importance of persistence. For many, their businesses are not an overnight success, and it takes several years of hard work, learning from failures, and iterating on their ideas before they take off. However, those who are still standing didn't give up. They kept pushing forward, and that's what made all the difference. Now, I get the sense that many people here are interested not just in the idea of being innovative at work, but really in the idea of setting up their own businesses and side hustles. So I'll talk a bit more about that as well. So persistence is something that's going to be essential to you, and it's what separates those who succeed from those who give up at the first hurdle. You're going to need to be willing to put in the hard work, to make mistakes and learn from them, and to keep pushing forward even when things get really difficult. Now, personally, I count myself among the most novice of entrepreneurs. However, in my own journey, the power of networking and building relationships has been a theme. I've been able to build a network of mentors, advisors, and partners who supported me along the way and helped me to navigate the ups and downs. And I've also invested a lot of time in building relationships with my customers. Another element of this is backing yourself and taking the leap. So you have to be comfortable with the fact that you don't know everything and the idea that things might not work out, not at least in the way that you plan them. But if you believe in your idea and you're willing to put in the work, then who knows what's possible? I was successful in an executive career, and it really baffled many people that I was stepping off this treadmill and I was making a different choice for my life. But it was infinitely clear to me that it was something I needed to do. So perhaps to share an inspiration that I really enjoy, one of the people that I admire is Sarah Blakely, who you may have heard of. She's the founder of Spanx. And her story is one of perseverance, of creativity and innovation in the face of adversity. She grew up in Clearwater, Florida, and she'd had many challenges in her early life. Her parents had divorced while she was young, her mom had remarried, and she had 3 stepbrothers that entered the family. But despite whatever challenges she had at home, she remained determined and ambitious, and she graduated from Florida State University with a degree in communications. After she finished college, she took a sales job with a company that sold fax machines door to door. And while she was successful at that job, she didn't feel fulfilled, and she really yearned for something more. She wanted to start her own business, but she wasn't sure quite what that business would be. And one day, as she was getting ready for a party, Sarah realized that she didn't have the right undergarment to wear under a pair of white pants. She tried on several different options, but none of them worked. And that's when she had a light bulb moment. She decided to create a comfortable yet functional undergarment that would smooth out any bumps or bulges. She spent the next year researching and developing her product, using her savings to fund the product. She even taught herself how to write a patent, something she knew nothing about before starting her business. And finally, in the year 2000, she launched Spanx. Now, initially, the response to Spanx was lukewarm. She had trouble getting stores to carry her product, and she was rejected, actually, by several investors. She even drove to the headquarters of Neiman Marcus to pitch her product, and she was turned away. But despite all of this, she remained persistent. She believed in her product. She continued to improve it, and she began selling it online. She reached out to women's magazines and offered to send them samples to review. And one of the magazines was Oprah Winfrey's O Magazine, which featured Spanx in their favorite things issue. And then suddenly, because of this publicity, the product was in high demand. In the years that followed, Spanx became a huge success. And her company has grown rapidly. She's expanded her product line to include all kinds of things, leggings, activewear, and even men's undershirts. And in 2012, Forbes named Sarah the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. So what I find most inspiring about Sarah's story is her resilience and determination in the face of adversity. She faced rejection, but she did not give up on her dream. She also demonstrated incredible creativity and innovation in developing her product. She was willing to take risks and to learn new skills to make her business a success. And this really says to us that anyone can overcome adversity and achieve great things if they're willing to work hard, to persevere, and to stay true to their vision. And I hope that she serves as an inspiration to you in the way that she does to me. Certainly, her legacy will continue to inspire business leaders for years to come. So that really says that risk-taking is an essential part of entrepreneurship. It's being willing to embrace the uncertainty, to take calculated risks, being comfortable with the idea that you won't know everything, that things may not go to plan, but believing in that idea enough to put in the work and to attempt to achieve success. So I did receive some pre-questions that I thought I would address, and I will leave time for others when we have the Q&A session. And one of the questions was, how do we make time or find time for side hustles for those in the UK who are in audit firms where the primary job takes most of our time? And what are the practical suggestions to find that balance? So this is a common challenge. What you're experiencing is what many people face when they're trying to pursue a side hustle while also maintaining a full-time job, particularly in a demanding industry like audit. So I think it's important that you manage your time well. It's about making a schedule to make sure that you're leaving enough time in your week to dedicate to your ideas. So that could mean waking up earlier in the morning. That could mean dedicated time over the weekends. It could mean stepping out during the day, maybe taking a lunch break, whatever it is, making time, making sure that it is a priority for you. Secondly, starting small. So not overcommitting yourself, not setting the bar too high that if you fail it, you're not going to be encouraged to continue. Start with a small idea and then prove to yourself that you're possible of making it work, and gradually build it up. As it becomes more successful, you might find the courage to make this your full-time job and not your side hustle. Find ways to make life easier for yourself. So are you able to automate some of your tasks? Are you able to delegate tasks that are taking up a lot of time? So for example, if you're running an online store or an online business, consider using tools that automate things like social media posts or even email marketing. And if you have the resources, then consider hiring help to take on some of the workload. And at first it might seem like, well, I'm not making any money. Why would I invest in an employee? But actually making that investment might free you up to make the money. And it's a virtuous circle. Set boundaries. So communicate with your employer about what you're planning to do and the time that you need to do that. You're saying to them essentially that you value the job that you have and you won't let that business interfere with your work, but that you're being very clear about the hours that you're prepared to work. So they're aware that you have other things going on. You may not wish to make it that explicit, but you're essentially saying that you've got other life commitments that you need to attend to after hours. And then lastly, being realistic, just being very clear about the time and the resources that you have available. And if you're doing too much, you run the risk of burning out. So please be mindful of that. So keep taking stock, keep your support circle around you, and take time to reevaluate and adjust as you go along. I know that finding that balance between working full time and building a side hustle can be challenging, but it's not impossible. If you're in the lucky position where you're financially able to step away from it, or you're actually brave enough to step away and back yourself on your venture, then do that too. And I think that if you surround yourself with a community of other entrepreneurs, you'll be able to lean on them and their advice, and then just be patient with yourself, one step at a time. I was also asked, what do I consider to be non-negotiable in a small business? It's a really good question. And I think that it's important to identify what your non-negotiables are, because they're going to help you to make decisions and make sure that you stay true to who you are. So one thing is core values. Identify what those are. How do they define you and how do they guide the way that you do business? And how do you reflect them in everything that you do, from how you market yourself, brand yourself, how you manage employees, how you communicate with your customers and your team. Second thing is around quality, ensuring that your products and your services are of the highest quality so that you're just ensuring the success of your business and not being willing to compromise that. So you want to meet or exceed your customer expectations and make sure that they're being delivered to in a timely and professional manner. And then lastly, being ethical. So conducting your business ethically and with integrity should be non-negotiable. There are many easy ways to make money that are not ethical. And if that's you, you probably don't need to be an entrepreneur. You could be many other things. But this includes being honest and transparent with your customers, your suppliers, your employees, and making sure that you're above the law at all times. I was also asked about my most significant failures and what I learned from them. So from my perspective, I consider all of my experiences, positive or negative, to be learning points. So I don't necessarily frame them as failures. I think one of the things that I would say I've been guilty of, and I would encourage others to reflect on, is spreading myself too thinly. So I am guilty of doing too much at any given time. I take on many, many things, and it's part of my personality. It's part of how I've always operated. But from time to time, I have to take stock and consolidate and make the choice to get something solid done, to bank it, and then move on to the next thing, rather than trying to juggle 50 balls at the same time and not really landing any of them. And then secondly, I would say doubting myself is something that I've had to check. So for too long, as I told you in my story, I took a long time to think about taking this leap, and it cost me my fulfillment in that time. So backing myself sooner is something that I would tell my younger self for sure. And then lastly, I was asked about some of the challenges that I might face as a woman in my career and how I bridge those expectation gaps. And I know for many of us, being a woman and being a woman of color in particular in the worlds that we operate is quite challenging. It can be lonely. You can feel like you stand out a lot. You're dealing with all kinds of things, microaggressions and racism. You're dealing potentially with sexual harassment, as I have. And maybe the sense that women aren't as capable at some things as men are, supposedly. Maybe you're dealing with some kind of professional jealousy. And my advice to you is just to remember who you are and be unwavering in your view of what you're capable of. And that's the way that I've always gone about things. I don't let the fact that I'm a woman or a Black woman or whatever the case might be a hindrance to me. And I always reinforce that with positive self-talk. And I'm always taking stock of areas where I need to grow and areas where I think I'm doing things in the way that I'm proud of. So self-knowledge, I think, is going to be an important tool that will help you. So that's it from me. In short, I would say if you've got a desire to be an entrepreneur, take that leap. Start small, experiment, and back yourself. After all, you should be your biggest cheerleader. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Wow, thanks, Marjorie. That was amazing. I'm sure all of us are very inspired by your story. I was just listening to you talk about like if you're able to quit your job and just start something. That's actually one of the most scariest things to do, to like say, I'm not happy at this job. You know what? Let me start my own thing. That's commitment. That's what we should essentially be doing. If you want something, just go for it. And yeah, it's really inspiring.
Absolutely. And I think for many people, what holds them back is the lives they've established for themselves. So they're living very expensive lives that are going to keep them chained forever because they can't step away from them. So I would encourage you, if that sounds like you, look at your lifestyle. Look at what you need versus what you want, because you might find that if you focus on your needs, you actually do have the financial capacity to step away from your job.
Right. It's great. Great. Thank you so much. I'm just going to open the floor to one burning question. If anyone has one question, I see some praises there in the chat box. Everyone was enjoying and loving it. If there's anyone with one question, I'll give you like 10 seconds to come up and then we can move on. Okay, I don't see anything. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much.
I'll be here for the Q&A. Thanks.
Thanks.
You've gone on mute somehow, Valerie.
Sorry.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. That was amazing. Thank you. And we are going to move on to a second speaker. Shailendra, I can't see her. Are you there, Shailendra? Oh,
I am definitely here, and I was enjoying the talk by Marjorie there.
Oh, good. So yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself and then yeah, take it over.
Yes, sure. Thank you. You can hear me clearly, right? Okay, great. So my name is Shailendra Senzere. I am a lot of things. I am a founder and managing director of a company called Promote Balance, a company that I founded in 2019, and we work on improving wellness for the corporate space and for individuals. So that's where my title of coach also comes, because that's actually what I spend most of my time doing, coaching people, especially into career growth and of course some life coaching. So yeah, Marjorie, thank you so much for explaining, and I think Janice as well at the beginning, what coaching is and what we actually help people to do. I always like saying that we take people from a scale of 0 to 5. So imagine for me a scale that starts from -5 to +5, and +5 is where we want to be, where we wish to be, that vision board person. -5 is the place that we all don't want to be, a place of psychological distress, stress, etc. And then 0 is where most of us are, you know, just fine, just okay. So we don't work in the -5 to 0, because that's psychology work, which I left a few years ago. And then now I focus on the 0 to +5, where I actually work on people like you and I to optimize each other to be the best that we can ever be. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead already and share a presentation with you. All right, so just before I get into, let me see, how do I make it? Okay, there we go. So just before I get into the stuff on the screen, I would like to let you know that I have great passion for becoming the best person that you can be, because I have seen that happen to myself. And I just decided to share this picture with you. It's of me in 2018. I was working for this company. You can see in the background, it says Funda Medical there. It was my first corporate job, coming from hospital as a therapist into corporate, because I was like, no, I want to try something different. So I got into that office. That was my first year. I know you can't really tell a lot from a picture, but you can definitely see my eyes are smaller. I look tired. It's like a forced smile. I think a colleague is in the passage and they're like, can I take a picture of you? And you can see the huge mug of coffee. I'm like, okay, jolt me up now. I want to wake up, you know? So that was me, 2018. Fast forward, same company, 2023, Funda Medical. Of course, I had made up better. My face was better done. But you can see my eyes are wider. You can see the calmness I have. And you can see that I'm a bit more confident than I had been in 2018. And this is the same company. And more importantly, I want you to know that in 2018, I was working as a typist for some orthopedic doctors. And then in 2023, I go there as a consultant, training their staff, even giving talks to the medical doctors on occupational therapy and medical legal implications. So you can see there's been a big shift in the person that I am. And one of the things that I owe it to is the skill of mindfulness, which I'm going to share with you. Valerie, I'm going to need your help here, because I'm going to run a quick poll. I'll put up pictures. Some of them are A's, others are B's. So I want you to vote which one you would go for, an A picture or a B picture. So people, please get the charts going, and let's see if the A's are going to win or the B's are going to win. So imagine this: you're going to build a house for yourself, and you have two options here. So this is the plan that your architect gives you versus this one. So will you go for A or will you go for B? We're gonna vote. And then I'll go next. You wanna style your master bedroom in any house, whether where you are now or even this house that's been built. Will you go for A or will you go for B? So I'll show you A. It's got this pine wood color, and it's got like a matching mustard cushion and white bedding. And then this one's got like a million colors on there. There are pictures on the wall. It's got poles around your bed. There are chairs around, big lamps on the side. Would you go for A or would you go for B? The last picture is you now want to style your current living room. You want to change the curtains. Would you go for A? You see the rod and curtains that are, you know, or would you go for B? There's a lot of gathers on there. There's a lot of detail and that stuff. Okay. I'm going to run that quickly again. The house you're building, A or B? The bedroom, A or B? The curtaining, A or B? What would you go for? So anyone in the support team, may you just check what is the general feel? Which letter are we seeing a lot there in the chat?
I'm just counting now, but I see a lot of A's. I see more A's.
Yes.
More A's, a lot of A's, a lot of A's. Just a few B's. I don't know what these B's are thinking.
I feel the B's too, because I'll choose B's here or there intentionally. But I saw, Valerie, your auditor skills were coming in and you're like, I haven't counted. But no, that's fine. Let's go right to it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I said I wanted to make sure I got the number.
I can see. No, that's fine. But to move on, you see, most are A's, and fair enough. I would also choose mostly A's of what is there, because we have just turned into a minimalistic society. Minimalistic is the word. Every picture I showed you had straight lines, little patterns, all corners, you know, no flowers, I mean with the A's, and then the B's were a lot more texture, a lot more color, a lot more, you know, floral things. But we have become minimalistic. And my topic for today is the pandemic of minimalism. So the A's, we're probably thinking really nice, but today I'm going to go with the B's because I think minimalism has become a terrible pandemic we need to look at. All right, so remember, well, I don't think any of us saw this unless I'm mistaken with the demographics, but at least we've seen it in the pictures. But you see, this phone compared to my current Samsung phone, which is like currently as it is next to me, it's black. I don't even see there's anything going on there. But you see, this phone has got wood, it's got metal, it's got plastic, it's got a circle. And if you remember the more modern ones that we got exposed to, when you're dialing it, it goes, and then it goes, ooh, ooh. And I always imagine, what if I was still making calls with that? How soothing would that sound be? I'll probably be making calls just for that sound. You know, wood comes with a smell. You can smell it. When you're holding it, you're feeling it. Our cell phones now, you put it and hold it with your clothes, and then your cheek has so much acne now from doing that. When it rings, we all, or at least most of us, have our phones on silent, but this one would never be put on silent. The pandemic of minimalism is the fact that we have put everything down to zero. We don't see, we don't feel, we don't hear, we don't smell anymore with our daily activity. Look at, imagine where you work, especially the ladies in the UK, you see someone walking in like this, you'll be like, oh, Miss Bouquet, right? But look at the detail that's the earrings, the curly hair, the gloves, who still wears gloves, the scarves, the lines, the dots, the stockings. You only dress like this when there is a campaign at work to dress like the 80s, you know, but look at the detail that's there. Us in the minimalistic environment that we are, we go with a black t-shirt, the famous gray t-shirt of Zuckerberg, to go to the office, the pandemic of minimalism. So now I want to highlight something to all of us. Minimalism is killing our brains. I'll tell you quickly, it reduces our focus to short periods of attention. Imagine when you're on your phone, how many of you have spent more than 7 minutes, maybe you didn't time, let's say 20 minutes on one picture on Instagram? Maybe none of us. We go through 1 million pictures in 20 minutes. So that means we cannot focus anymore on one thing for a prolonged period. So that's killing our attention span. We don't fully exercise our brain. I'm sure you've seen pictures of the brain that have colors that are sparking. It's called a functional MRI. And the functional MRI shows areas of the brain where oxygen is going to when we are doing certain things. And functional MRIs of pictures that have more detail actually show that the brain is more active in many areas of it compared to lines, you know, compared to boxes and the typical stuff that is unnatural. Okay, so minimalism is affecting our dopamine levels. We are not excited for long anymore. We want a quick dopamine fix, you know. On TikTok, we want 30 seconds to actually reach the orgasmic area of our social media scrolling, you know. In 30 seconds, I'm excited, I'm laughing, and I'm sharing with my family. And yet, when we go back to the guys that were less minimalistic and more detailed, they would need to take family on a camping experience over 4 days to get that same excitement of dopamine. So now we're looking to change jobs too quickly. We're looking to move on too quickly. We're divorcing even more because we have trained our brains that you need to be excited in 30 seconds. If it doesn't happen, then you move on. Minimalism is actually affecting our creativity on a task, because you can just draw, you take a sheet of paper, you put Carol Boys there, and you've got the most expensive piece of equipment or kitchen utensil. But that is reducing our creativity. It's reducing our communication. I always speak with colleagues of mine. 2 days ago, I had a young man I'm trying to hire for a programming job. So I say, hi, Greg, how are you? I heard you're looking for a job. And he says, hey, what's up? And I was like, what? we would ordinarily write a whole sentence. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for reaching me. I'm very excited that you're getting here. But now, because of short and instant messaging, our communication skills are non-existent. They're really, really terrible now. And ChatGPT, if I put in now, give me a talk on minimalism, it's going to give me 7 pages. And I don't have to be creative. I don't have to learn communication. You know, we do journaling on the phone now. We don't have books that we learn and scribble when I use the wrong word. You know, we click that yellow line, I mean, that blue line on our Word document to give us alternative words. That's the problem of minimalism. Okay, so it is deemed to be a threat now to have more detail. Some of you, I'm sure when you saw those curtains, you were like, oh, I'm scared, because minimalism has told us that more is a threat. It reduces creativity on your task, but I must say that minimalism also helps us to focus because we remove the digital clutter. The only problem is even my 5-year-old daughter is exposed to minimalism. When will she grow her brain? For some of us, we're fortunate to grow with our grandparents that had the doilies going on and 7 pieces of decorations in the house going on, so our brains were exercised. But the younger generation is coming up with problems because of the pandemic of minimalism. It reduces motivation. I've explained that. And I want to highlight that it reduces our self-awareness. If I'm asked right now, who are you? I'm going to be minimalistic and talk about what I do every day, my job, etc. If I ask you, how was your childhood? I'm going to be minimalistic and say it was fine. It was great. It was sad because of the pandemic of minimalism. Minimalism has its own positives, reduce clutter. I'm not going to focus on that, but I want to move on and tell you that, like I said, the 2018 me brought up the 2023 me because of mindfulness. I got to know myself a lot more. I got to spend time with myself a lot more and get a lot more detail at what I did. Okay, so mindfulness, what is it in short? It is a state of being fully present and engaged in a non-judgmental and accepting attitude towards ourselves. Thank you so much, Marjorie, for talking about entrepreneurship. Sorry, let me get this the noise out. Okay, yeah, so they're making noise, but sorry about that. I was going to say that mindfulness helps us to be fully present, engaged, non-judgmental, and having an accepting attitude. As entrepreneurs, as Marjorie was saying, the first step is to work on yourself. Who are you? You know, are you engaged in who you are? Are you aware of who you are? Do you have an accepting and non-judgmental attitude towards who you are at every moment? You know, when you're more mindful, you actually realize that every single bit of my life currently is non-threatening. It is actually great and it is safe. You know, half the time we worry about how am I going to pay my bills, and yet we are like 30 days from payment of my bills. And that kills our ability to deal with situations. Okay. Secondly, when you're fully accepting of what's going on, you actually get to be deeper into like negative states of emotions. For instance, you get to actually feel pain when you have pain. Our minimalistic kind of life has told us that emotions are not welcome in the workplace. Everyone's busy, we are scared, but that's being minimalistic. We need to be more present with our emotions and be there a lot more. And that we can only do with mindfulness. In short, mindfulness helps us to reduce the pandemic of minimalism because we are pushed to focus more on all the things that we do. And I'm here to say that mindfulness is like a rehabilitative approach. You see, this gentleman suffered a stroke and is in rehab. Same with this man. The physical therapist is not teaching him to walk. He is re-engaging the man's brain so that he knows that when this muscle moves, my brain exercises like this. So in short, mindfulness helps us to re-engage our minimalistic brain that has been taught to do so little, that has been taught to have very little vocabulary because we don't need to speak anymore. We don't need to think about what we say anymore. So how then can you be mindfulness? You need to increase awareness to your touch, sensation of touch, always be understanding, where am I sitting? Where am I feeling? You need to improve to increase awareness to your hearing. What am I hearing right now? You know, next to my office, my office here, I've got a running pump to my little garden, and it makes this sound all day, and it reminds me where I am. It's great because my mind, my hearing is always being stimulated. My sight, what do you have on your desk? Is it also a plain desk? Does it have anything that speaks to your creativity? If not, start and do it now. Your smell, using hand cream that has a smell, your taste buds, and vestibular. Vestibular stimulation is having, those exercise balls in your office. Sit on an exercise ball. It's always stimulating you to prop up. And this actually makes you focus a lot more, increases your ability to expand your concentration span. So this is basically how you become mindful, is to focus on each of your senses. All right, great. Why do we need to be mindful? We grow better with our personal lives. We grow better professionally. We lead better because when you are mindful, you do understand where everyone is coming from and where you are coming from. You cope better with stressful situations, like I was explaining. Being mindful tells me that where I am now is not threatening. Half the time we struggle to speak in public because we are thinking, what will people think about us? But while we are on stage, people are not going to tell us what they thought about us. So we start thinking, I'm scared, this is threatening. But if we are mindful, we're like, no, this is a time to speak to people that can answer back. So I'm in control. You know, you are really, really mindful of your current environment. Lastly, you become more emotionally intelligent because you know how to feel, you know how to experience things, you know how to describe different things. For instance, one of the ladies said, a lady parked by the roadway to smell a flower. You know, so when they feel good, they can say, oh, I feel good, like the calm smell of a rose along the highway. You know, so you become more mindful, more emotionally intelligent. You have more vocabulary to explain how you feel and also to actually understand how people feel when you're mindful. I was going to say that we have a self-authoring program that we give at Promote Balance. It gets you to learn a lot more about yourself in detail, key positive and key negative aspects. It reduces the things to say, how are you? I'm good. Who are you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You say what everyone else says. I tend to expect a lot from people, so I push them. You know, that doesn't give insight into the person that you are because you have not been mindful and spent time with yourself. So the self-authoring program is one of the ways that we use to actually get people to be more mindful about who they are, who their past self is, their present self, and who their future self is. Right. So I just want to wrap up by saying that as you look at these pictures, these pictures have the same value. In pound terms, I think it would be about 4,000 pounds. And this one is an imitation of Starry Night by Van Gogh. And it's like a printed one. It also costs the same. We are more likely going to choose A other than B because B is scary. But I want you to look at the detail of what I was saying. A is going to help you look at each brush stroke that went around. It's going to make you understand the texture, the going around, the circles that were put, the little houses. It's going to bring your imagination to another place other than A. A is just going to be another picture on the wall that my 5-year-old can potentially try out. You know, and galleries are going to close because people will walk through an art gallery because there isn't really much to see here compared to what is here. Before I wrap up, Chair, may I please have 3 minutes, because I just really want us to go through a mindfulness meditation practice.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to share my video. I think the one thing that we always say at Promote Balance is that it doesn't help us to tell people, because as a minimalistic generation, we are so used to information. We've got a lot of information on our hands, but we barely have time to go into the details of practice. So I would like us all to go through the mindfulness meditation that I'm going to share on screen. It's from Google. That means that anyone can go on YouTube and look for mindfulness meditation. And in this meditation, I would like you to focus on each and every aspect of it and link it to your 5 senses that are going to be stimulated as you get more mindful. Okay, I'm going to share that. Right. My apologies. Okay, there we go. Pandemic of minimalism. All right. Does it share the sound, Valerie?
I could not hear it.
You didn't hear the sound. Okay, let me just stop share and share with sound. All right, there we go. So just be sure you are comfortable and you're sitting comfortably in a spot that you like, and sit with your back up straight, and let's focus on the meditation.
Welcome to today's mindful moment, a short body scan to let go of any tension and reset. To get started, take a seat, close your eyes, and rest your hands on your knees. Take a moment to just be. We've got nowhere to go and nothing we have to do. Bring your attention to the top of your body, your face, and notice any tension you might be holding in your jaw. Let it go. Moving down to your shoulders, let them hang free. From your shoulders down into your arms, let go of any tightness in your hands. Take your attention now to your stomach. If you're holding any tension there, let it go. Taking the focus down into your legs and into your feet. Let them hang free. Bring your attention to your breathing. Noticing where you feel it most in your body as you breathe in and out. Perhaps it's the air going in through your nose, or as your chest and stomach move with your breath. See if you can notice the exact moment your breath changes from breathing in to breathing out. Gently bring your focus back to your body on your seat. And in your own time, open your eyes. How do you feel now? Sometimes unknowingly,
All right, so that's a very simple 3-minute exercise to bring us to feel, to hear, and to just be in the moment and to relax. And I think most of you actually wanted this to go on longer because it was just so calming. So as I close, I just want to say thank you, WeCAN, thank you to all the listeners. May we realize that our society is full of minimalism, and to bring back the happy brain and the functional brain, let's try and do a lot of mindfulness meditation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shailendra. That was so relaxing. I almost fell asleep. When you were talking about like focusing, like having your sight focusing, I'm always thinking, sometimes I know I have a pen and I know I put it on my desk, but I can't remember exactly where I put it because I'm not in that moment, and I'm always like, where did I put this pen? But I know I've seen it before, but because just my whole flow is off, you end up losing so many things because of this. This is so helpful. Thank you so much. All right. A lot of thanks on the chat box. Thank you, Shailendra. Thank you, amazing. It was amazing. It was really relaxing. So I'm just gonna open the floor to one and then we move to the Q&A. Anyone has one burning question, just unmute yourself and we can ask Shailendra. Okay, so I'm just gonna start going through the questions and I'll just refer the questions to you and Marjorie as we go. Thank you so much, Shai. All right, so the first question I can see is from Monica, and she says, thank you, Marjorie. It's to Marjorie. Thank you, Marjorie, for sharing your amazing story. In your experience, what are the key things you consider in measuring success as an executive, and are these the same measures you consider as an entrepreneur? I don't know if you got me there.
Thank you. It's a really good question. And the short answer is no. That might be different for everyone. So in an organization, you might be measured on how much money you're bringing to your organization, or you might think about how much money you're earning. You might see your salary as a measure of success. You might see ladder climbing, so collecting titles, getting promoted as a measure of success. You might see certain skills that you have as measures of success. So I'm able to lead teams, or I'm able to do great presentations, whatever is meaningful to your context. You're probably defining your measures of success around things that are quite external, I think. And the difference for me anyway, in comparing that life to a life where I'm doing my own thing, is I'm more concerned with the level of fulfillment I'm getting. So a lot of how I measure what I'm going to get involved with is, do I think that it'll tick that box for me? Or do I think I'm doing it because somebody else thinks I'm good at it, or somebody else wants to leverage my skill set versus me finding kind of enjoyment and meaning in it? Secondly, I would look at, how do I prove to myself that I'm capable? How do I have milestone moments that I look back on and go, wow, you doubted that you might have come this far, but look where you are. So those are the sorts of things that are successful for me. And then lastly, making a meaningful contribution. And I don't think I thought about that very deeply when I was in my exec role, not in the way that I do now anyway. I was probably looking at making a contribution to my organization, and now I'm more interested in how this helps other people and society at large. Hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, I have a question for Shai here. It says, do you feel like your experience in the health sector has helped you have a more understanding of mindfulness?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. I would say yes, in short. And the long answer is mindfulness has made me working in the health sector has made me understand mindfulness in that I understand the science behind it. As Marjorie said earlier, everyone calls themselves a coach these days. And if you do not have a backing of where your coaching is coming from, you will not be helpful. You will not know what you're doing. And that is why we pride our offerings on being neuroscience based and also being psychology based because of my hospital background. I understood it theoretically. In health science, we talk about intellectual insight versus emotional insight. So I understood it. I had an intellectual insight on what mindfulness is before I experienced it for myself, where I then had to reform from the shy that was being unsatisfied with what I was doing. Just as Marjorie has said, my measure of success had to change. I was helping a million, well, not a million, maybe hundreds of people a year to be better mentally, but I was dying in the process because I wasn't living to my potential. So being mindful and understanding myself, now translating the intellectual knowledge I have into the emotional insight that I was now applying to myself, I would say is what made me understand and appreciate mindfulness more for myself. But for my clients, of course, it is my intellectual background.
Great, lovely. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm going to just take one question for Marjorie and one question for Shai so that we remain on time. So to you, Marjorie, in terms of timeline, what would you advise someone looking to move out of the corporate scene? From your own experience, would you have left earlier on, or you felt it's important to get executive level first?
Oh, it's a tough question. I would say that Shai and I are probably speaking very similar languages, and thank you for the amazing presentation, by the way. I would say knowing yourself is important. So that timeline is going to be different for everyone. What matters to you? If financial security is absolutely critical and you need everything in place and all your ducks in a row, give yourself the time it takes to get there, whatever that is. If you're more of a risk taker or you don't really have high outgoings and you can afford to be in a place where you're more experimental, then give yourself a shorter timeline. But what I would say is start drafting what that timeline looks like for you and preparing for that move. So get yourself into the mindset where you understand, what is it I'm really chasing by moving out of my space? The question around, do I need to become an executive first? It depends. What does being an executive do for this grander vision that you have for yourself? Or are you ticking boxes? Are you living someone else's wish for you? And is that going to be fulfilling or meaningful? You're going to be pretty miserable if you're not doing it for yourself. And therefore, from that perspective, if I'd had my awakening sooner, I think I would have thrived much more. But I ignored it for a very long time. I didn't want to come to terms with the fact that I was actually living my parents' dream for me rather than my own. So if that's true for you, then just reflect on, how do you make it different? How do you build a transition? I know it's scary to take a leap all at once. So if you're someone who struggles with that, how do you make it more comfortable by pacing it in a way that's meaningful to you?
Great. I think a lot of us are still living our parents' dreams at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, one final question to say. I'm just gonna pick this one. Okay. Seeing your entrepreneurs now outside corporate, did you have to go back to school to refine your skills?
I think Marjorie would have a take on this as well, because this is the one thing we see a lot as coaches. We see people that have the inadequacy syndrome, as I want to call it now, because they feel like, I don't have the skills. I want to go to school. I need 17 more degrees for me to be able to call myself this. And very common with professional qualifications. If you're qualified as an accountant, to start saying, I'm a coach, you're like, oh, there has to be something that should be done, you know, for me to then be a coach. But then if you ask I promise you, I know of a lot of people who never studied anything and they're actually calling themselves accountants because they've done bookkeeping. They're calling themselves coaches even more because they just feel like this is what's playing, and they are more successful than us intellectual people who like, I need another degree. So I would say my answer to you is, I'll refer back to you again, Marjorie. You said, understand that this is what you're meant to do and learn about it. I have taken a lot of courses on positive psychology because I thought I decided that is our niche of how we help people. Most of these courses are not even certified, but they give me sound knowledge to help me improve my clients. And the one thing that I can see, that I can tell you, is there is no better coach than someone who's lived the ropes of what they want, what you want to become. You know, I get a lot of clients that say, I saw your YouTube video and I want to speak like you do, you know, and it's got nothing to do with any training that I got. So I would say that coming from a very restricted and very regulated profession, the health professions, it's quite daunting to start calling yourself another title. But if you have studied on your own time, not necessarily with a qualification, it actually works. I have studied, yes, to answer directly the question, I have studied, but in retrospect, I'm like, I could have been a coach even before that because I knew it, you know. So that is my take on that, Valerie.
Thanks, Shai. Marjorie, want to add anything to that?
I think that's very well said, Shai. It's absolutely right. I think we can be overly obsessed about qualifications, and that is, again, leaning on the outside world to define value for you. If you want to acquire knowledge, go ahead and do it. You don't need a piece of paper to tell you that you now understand something. And to your very point, I started coaching before I did any coaching qualifications. I did them because I wanted to understand whether I was missing anything. Yeah. And nobody, not one of my clients, has asked me, how are you qualified to be a coach? Never. And it's interesting because when I was looking into this, the coaches who were established said the same thing to me. You're not going to do this qualification for anybody else but yourself. There will be some institutions that want to make sure that you're XYZ qualified, but they're few and far between. The rest of the people want to understand, do you know what you're talking about? Are you credible? Because maybe you've lived those experiences. And that's ultimately what matters. So acquire knowledge, but don't necessarily tick boxes. It's not necessary. If that's what you feel you want to do, it's a choice.
Great responses. Thank you, ladies. So that's us. I'm just going to hand over to Jens to give us some closing remarks and a vote of thanks.
Thanks, Valerie. This was an absolute gem of a session, and it's and I'm glad we recorded, because those who couldn't make it will definitely find value in listening and synthesizing the information that was shared here. Firstly, a very warm and hearty thank you to the speakers. Marjorie, you spoke on purposefulness, and I think you're super humble, because if we had gone to read your profile from the very beginning, we'd actually see how successful you were in corporate and in other ventures like leadership within the Institute of Actuarial Sciences within the UK, and your achievements were absolutely amazing. And to think that you walked away from all that to pursue your purpose and do so beautifully is something that is absolutely inspiring. Just a big thank you for sharing those rubies with us, absolute gems you shared with us. And I'm sure a lot of the ladies here and those who will listen in the future will benefit from how it is important to take stock of yourself, where you are, touching on to Shai's mindfulness, to say, if you're chasing the money, is it really worth it? Rather pursue what is at the core for you for the benefit of others. So thank you, Marjorie. That was absolutely amazing. Shai, as always, you never fail to amaze me, and I did learn a lot. And I must say, I was one of those who was already defensive. What do you mean there's a pandemic in minimization or minimalism? And you really stole me there. And the ability to, you know, I was taking a checklist of what I need to do to my office to make sure I'm mindful at any point in the day. So thank you. In the exercise at the end there, absolutely crucial. And I think something we should do at the end of every day before we step up from work to our families. So thank you for those gems you shared as well. I'd like to say thank you to the ICAS Secretariat. Some of them are still online with us, and it's this part of the world, it's after 8 p.m. So thank you to the Secretariat for all your help always. We appreciate it. To the UK chapter committee, a big thank you as well for organizing this. This was highly beneficial to all those who logged in. Thank you, Val, for your leadership and ably steering the ship. Thank you to those who are behind the scenes offering all the support to make this webinar a success. And last but not least, thank you to the attendees. I know for some of you it's really late or really early, but I'm sure you found this absolutely worth it. I saw Bryce, you know, he's our junior vice president. Thank you for the support. We appreciate it. We feel the warmth of the support of leadership from ICAS joining us. I'd like to wish you all a lovely evening and see you at the next webinar. I'll hand you back over to Valerie.
Thanks, Janice. Thank you, everyone. Could I just ask the UK, the people in the UK to stay on the call? But everyone else, thank you so much. Have a good night. Goodbye.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, goodbye.